Cool, thank you. All right. Yeah, so I'll just reframe myself. So there'll be a bit of a pun, and Chris alluded to in one of his messages he sent out, but ships ashore, event storming through monolithic oceans, deciphering the waves of legacy code was the long convoluted name we came up with, but just welcome. And it all makes sense in a second. So this was an application that was for a particular client that had a huge legacy app that was, I think at the moment, it was 20 years old when we first rocked up. And it was actually a project I got to run with Chris, who's also one of the project, was a project sponsor. So they were transitioning from a really big monolithic application into microservices. And Chris at the time suggested we use event storming for us to work it out. So this company's particular platform was there to navigate and aid and grab environmental data in order to help ships come into ports. So really, there was a really high, complex, convoluted application. It was originally built as a bit of a monolith, or was it actually a huge monolith? And they were suffering from the typical monolith story, which is the database had grown too large. There's too many, inner workings and tasks that they need to decipher and extract, as well as they were hitting tasks that were constantly, interfering with each other. So that was really the challenge for them, was to bring it to a microservices architecture. The challenge for us when we rocked up is how to understand 20 years of legacy code, which was very difficult. So the bit of the monolith enigma. So our mission was to go in and to work out what was being achieved with this particular application to aid to ships to get in. It had to be, this app was very important to them. It gathered a lot of environmental data and would then use that data to do predictions. And that would help ships work out if A, they're going to be able to successfully navigate into a port or leave a port without, having a safety issue like hitting the bottom of the ground, which would be quite bad and considered a large incident. So really there was a huge stress on the data must be fast, must be processed, and must be accurate and stored in a way that they can easily retrieve it. That was their real goals for it, but our goal was to understand how this big monolith worked, because we were having we had the huge task of redesigning it for them. So we deployed event storming. So to decipher this enigma, Chris unleashed event storming, which was my first forte into it, which was pretty interesting to be there as an observer, as well as then to utilize that tool later on. And this really led the way to finally understanding all the different domains and the complexities of the system that really they had 20 years of experience, and we need to know how it all worked in 1 week so we can start designing a new particular version of it. So using event storming was the blueprint of the software to make, to start to make the events and the state changes. And the role really for us was to understand the system's behavior and its interactions and and all its underlying use cases within the business. So event storming definitely helped us. So the advantages of it. So we got the insights of the data flows. I mean, this hopefully is a fairly common thing that you've seen if you've used event storming, the whole sticky notes thing, which to me was a real delight to see. When you are working with people and you see them start to put sticky notes up and then they have that domain knowledge, it's quite a relief when you see them taking ownership of it. And then you can just sit back, relax to a degree and start to collate what's happening and try to, decipher in your mind exactly how the system works and how it all interacts together. So this gave us a really great high-level overview about how the system and all the different components. And given the team that was involved, they were quite diverse people. So we could talk to the different, SMEs or the domains or the developers in this case, or the product owner, and say, okay, these are the units of functionality and the coherent and the different different areas that need to coherently work together, and we can, start to move them into manageable units. So from this is the first part of the exercise. Once we got through that, we start to understand the domains and the flow of information. So my history has been a developer and then moved into like a solution architect as well as a consultant. When you start to see things like this, it actually makes my life a bit easier, because I can see the different domains, I can see the different areas, I can see the data flow, the different events that would be inside a system. So from here, I could start to, understand how the system will work and what the new version would look like. So from there, we started to break down their existing monolith into microservices. So with that blueprint, we could start to see the different areas that we need to target, the different information flows when things need to go, ingested, QC'd, QA'd, as well as then stored in a certain location. And later on, we start to do prediction monitoring. We started to do predictions for them and able to store that so that they can use it in other systems within the platform in order to, safely get a vessel into the port. This became a bit of a clarity moment for us, or for me in particular, because once we had the different domains through the event storming process, it was easy to see how I could then start to piece it all together and come back with them with a design that they could understand, because they were able to utilize event storming to show us how the data flowed and the different domains. Within a few days, we can go, great, we're going to grab that and put it back as a design to them. Cool. So arriving at microservices. We eventually landed at microservices, which was an easier architecture, and it's where they wanted to go. So it made this life and it made the explanation to them really easy. They had a clarity of understanding how each system works, because we were taking the domains and then superimposing those on the design. So they could say, oh yeah, where we did QA, that's the QA area of the design. The domain really broke down the information and the ability for us to talk to them based on, we understood the domain, they were explaining how it worked, and then we could say, this is how the design works, this is how the information works, and this is how it all interacts. Yeah. And then I guess from there, we had a path forward. So we happened to be building this particular solution on an AWS platform, because that was their platform of choice. But once we had it and we had the design signed off, we had a way to start to transition that monolith into microservices. In this particular use case, we were going with the whole replace. We weren't going to do like a strangler pattern where we were going to facade the old one. It was a purely, we're going to build new, which was quite good from a development point of view, or from a project point of view, because you don't really have to worry about the legacy stuff so much. So the journey between that monolithic to the structured microservices was really a smoother one, I guess, in our case, because we didn't have to worry too much about the legacy. We were always going to be building it. And because we had the same team also from the beginning of the whole process, it was actually easy with the different clarity and the collaboration with them to take them on the journey of the building, because they were completely understanding of where we were and where we wanted to be. And it was, a kind of an excellent way to start a project, a way to I think give us a leg up from the beginning with this particular client. They were on board with it. They saw the value in it, and then we were able to deliver, and probably at a faster rate than I would have expected, to be honest, because they had a huge legacy of all this knowledge. The whole event storming process allowed us to get up and going faster compared to the whole traditional requirements gathering. You'd meet with different teams. Event storming kind of unlocked it and allowed us to understand their domains as well as their events. Really, it's a bit of a lightning talk. I've just hit almost 10 minutes, so that's the experience. Any questions or around it?
One question. I really get the event storming phase and really breaking down, really understand in depth by people who are SMEs to give you that knowledge in a short amount of time. How do you avoid not replicating the flaws of the old design or something that was problematic into the new one as well. If you're just doing, you know, using that to define something new, and you avoid that as part of the EventStorm.
I guess we were high level enough not to take some of that legacy through with us. Some of the patterns did come across. The particular issues they were having was that there was nothing was very clear. You always had to know the inner workings of the particular monolith and how it worked. Part of the design that we came up with is we surfaced that. We used different things. So for instance, they had a task-driven approach where, you know, a task would finish and then kick off another task. And only if you were to delve deep inside the database could you realize that. And we surfaced that as like set functions, for instance, which is a state machine. And you can see the different states it goes through. I guess in that respect, that was one way to get rid of it. With the terms of like dragging the legacy problems into the new microservices instance, we would also like directly say, what were your existing problems? What were your pain points? And avoid either, not to really avoid them, but to know what they are. So then when you're making that new design, you can say, this was a problem previously, let's not repeat the past. Ultimately, like, it's only as good as what they're going to tell you, and you need to then also work out how in the future to avoid these things. But yeah, it's through experimentation and through development only then we would find some of these particular items. And nothing's perfect, right? But given the architecture we came up with and this microservices world, to be honest, what I left them November last year to what they deployed this year also changed. They saw things that are no longer needed. So nothing is ever going to be perfect. You can't say a design is golden, don't touch a thing, just hit deploy, because that's never the fact. We did bring some things in that they weren't happy with, or they just wanted to change, and they did. So yeah, I think you can't let that fear drive you. You just got to probably move forward and also communicate. We had an open communication after the event storming. It wasn't very like guarded, we've got our secrets. Once it was like, here's everything on a page, we were able to get involved and talk to them. Anything else? Any other questions? Cool. That's it. Thank you very much.